Here we go. So I'm just going to hand out a sheet for you. Ooh, well, this one will not be, but it will be that. So that's sweet. It depends. Some people literally just like exhale. Otherwise, it would be like both hands like this and then both hands out. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Like, yeah, the lips. Yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, we're gonna start with a kind of just like our regular. We'll talk a bit about the invocation, and then we're gonna go into the opening of the space with the lesser banishing ritual and breath work and stuff. And then we'll check in and talk about the next sphere. And yeah, there's no painting today, so but I have something else that I feel like interesting. So I will get you, if you don't mind, Marina, to pick a number between 1 and 5. 3? Okay, thank you. So we'll just start ourselves with the solar plexus breath, which is like the fire breath. Okay. So with this, we are going to inhale, and then we're going to hold the breath in, and then we're going to exhale, and it's going to be all for equal counts. We'll do 4 seconds for now. So inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4. And we're going to continue this process for just a couple minutes. It's just going to help center us. And as we do that, we'll just imagine that element of fire, even in the solar plexus in the center part of our belly. So just beginning with empty lungs. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Continuing at your own pace, whether you extend or shorten the length, allowing each side of that triangle to be equal. Allowing stillness, especially in the pause of that inhaling hold. Noticing that fire within growing brighter, stronger. Perhaps noticing the heartbeat adding to the flame within. Together we'll sink again on empty lungs. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And inhaling into the belly, into the chest. Letting go. Turn back to the space. And so for today, the 28th day of November, I will share here on the screen for the invocation of the keys. Small, so you don't see all the faces on there. Okay. And so for today, just gonna, there you go. You can see that thing, guys. We're coming to the end of November, so we're coming to the end of having the 11th key as our like month key, and that's the Justice card. We talked about that last time. This is that faithful intelligence card, okay, and it's related to Libra, so everything about balance, related to how are we moving forward within that balance, super important. And then we have the Chariot card for the year 2023, which represents 7. That's fence. Very watery card with the Cancer energy here. So those two kind of carrying us through this entire month. Now we are at the path 28. So when I was even doing the calculation, I was like, what do I want to do? Do I want to reduce 28 to 1 or to 10 or to what? Because well, key 1 would be the Magician, which is like, I think, very encouraging. Key 10 would be the Wheel of Fortune, also all very positive. It's like, okay, well, 28 we don't come to very often, so 28 is the star. And it's, you were just mentioning when you came in too, reading about like the full moon, you know, like it's like there's something about the astrology maybe has people in like a very, you know, it's like the end of the year energy, I think, too. Something's going on. And when I see this card of the star, it very much reminds me of just how, like, what are the wishes that we hold? And this is something like a theme that's been showing up recently. So with the star card, it's tied to Aquarius energy, Zadi, the letter in Hebrew, and that is actually meaning like the fish hook, which kind of seems representative too. If you were going to go fishing in the water, what are you catching, right? What are you holding on to or drawing forward in your life? And Tiphareth itself, the sphere that we're going to talk about today, that 6th sphere in the tree, it's related to the sun, which is like the brightest star, at least for us here in this place. You know, it gives us warmth, it gives us light. So that representation here of the star. And so seeing these 3 cards, you know, is there anything anyone wants to share of which it brings up for you? You can, if you'd like to. You can unmute yourself, folks online, if you would like. And this is all tied together to the first Sephirah catcher, the crown. Okay, that's the very highest kind of star, even if we want to call it that, which has all the desire. It's known as like a desire that then creates everything else beneath it. Okay, even though it's not really beneath. So anyone have anything they want to share about these 3? It's okay. You don't have to. Coming to any conclusions that you would like to yourself. You could just see. Coming to any conclusions that you want to for yourself, you know, and holding that in. What is it that you are like reeling into your life and that the light wants to shine onto? Okay. So the invocation of the key that we'll do after the lesser banishing ritual, we will be vibrating 1 time, because Keter is the first sphere. We only are going to do this once. Lamed Zadi Chet. Aheye, which is the divine name of Keter, the spear. So we'll say that, vibrate that once, followed by Agala. Okay. Another thing I wanted to just point out about these cards, when you calculate the gematria for them, so kind of you add up all the other numbers that they represent. For instance, Lamed, I think, is the value of 30. Zadi might be like 60 or 90 or something like that. And Chet is 8. And we also add together the divine name Aheye, like all the letters that it represents. It combines to a number of 149. And so when I looked that up in the encyclopedia, like Qabalistic Encyclopedia, one of the terms that it came up with is Elohim Chaim, which is the living gods. And I thought that was really fascinating because when we're looking at Tiphareth today, it's kind of a combination of both the living and the dying, because it represents the Christ consciousness, so sacrificial gods. So, you know, whether your view or understanding of Christianity and kind of some of these other, what do we call it? Like sacrificial god myths, there's something tied into that within these stars or within these cards here today. Okay. So whatever that might mean for you, you're going to perform the lesser banishing ritual and the invitation. And set the stage. I'll leave that on here for you guys so you have that on your eyes and keep it there. As we declare this direction the magical use for the purposes of this working, we imagine ourselves standing here in this room, each our individual selves, and also standing as a collective of people, of souls drawn to reach everything light. With that, you begin to imagine your light body expanding and reaching for the heavens. Your feet still planted on the earth. Begin to reach past the clouds, the sky, atmosphere of this earth. Beyond the atmosphere into space. Past the planets, the sun, the solar system, the galaxy. Expanding ever forward, ever past, reaching ever for the light. Here's to the day. All so long. 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 Before us. Behind us. God. On our right hand. On our left hand. About us flames the pentagrams, and in the column shines the six-rayed star. Oh, 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 waters of understanding, by the waters of the great sea. Purify this space with water. A divine desire, where the sparks of aspiration flying upwards. Concentrate the space. Fire. Now, form the invocation of peace. By this working, may we attune to and align with the faithful intelligence, the natural intelligence, the house of influence. May we know and draw forth from within us the daughter of the Lords of truth, the ruler of the valleys, the daughter of the firmament, the dweller between the waters. And may the child of the powers of the waters, the Lord of the triumph of light, charter us across the abyss. And may this working be sanctified by the emanation of divine crown in the name A. Together we'll vibrate. Lamed, Zion, Het, A. Vibration, letters, names in your being. Something you see. So how was everybody's week? Or weeks, I guess. It's been a couple weeks. Anything that anyone would like to share around stuff showing up for them since we worked with NetSoc or all that lovely art? Chaos, did you say?
Yeah. Absolutely, it's related to fundamental things, if not that. But having all three, where it was, I have the same locations all the time in this recording. And I was going into this theater and I was about to try to talk on the way in because I didn't have access and but I needed to be in there. So then I looked. And Shirley Temple, the little child, was running, like looking at me and laughing. And but then I'm like, it's not Shirley Temple, that's in arrows. And chasing after. And didn't think anything of it. And now like, all these males keep sending me, what are you doing? You want to do this? Like out of nowhere. Not good things. Oh, that was beautiful.
And wasn't Eros, did that come up in the last one? Because that was part of like Aphrodite's like partner or whatever. Some guys kind of got the jealous streak, hey?
Eros, like the balance. Like
okay, yes, Cupid, okay. Oh, interesting.
Don't eat this.
So recognizing that dream, right? Powerful that the dream comes into like physical reality too, with those kind of, you know, like how it sometimes can seep into.
And that's normal, like that's always.
You're looking to it.
Actually, I think it's really tempting.
Yeah, why? Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Still be a
The cute innocence. Hi. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, because isn't a Shirley Temple like an alcoholic beverage? Or is that a oh, it is a mocktail.
Feel the experience.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Weird. Okay. I can't see if there's chat, anything in the chat here. Let me just open this. I don't think so. Oh. Hello. Anyways, okay. There's nothing of interest in the chat besides hello. So how did NetSoc show up? Ooh, yeah, okay. I made notes because I've had to definitely noticing for myself a lot with the goddess energy. Like it was a lot with like Isis, and that's been kind of a theme. So that beautification of the goddess, you know, and also what it looks like to be group mind, collective, or individual. That's definitely a theme that seems to be representing itself for me right now. So just recognizing it, tapping into the things I desire and that beauty. And allowing myself more time to play within creativity and art, like making more music and just like being in that space in my own place. That was definitely something fun. I recognized it's easy to get lost in, kind of like even that Eros energy of like, you know, falling so completely enraptured with something that you like lose yourself. So that was interesting. A few nights I kind of just played in that space. And I'm excited for this next one, you know, thinking about it, I was calculating, like, oh my gosh, we're like pretty much like halfway there, you know, now that we're entering into the 6th sphere of Tiphareth. So I have some things I wanted to talk about, and honestly, I didn't really feel like there's a whole lot to share. Like, I'm going to talk about some of the words that stood out and how that kind of represents in the entire tree. What that kind of looks like for us as like practitioners within magic, or just, you know, souls living in this experience. And I think there's just a lot that seems to be showing up around this idea. Again, the sun, the star, this like just really this fullest expression of ourselves and how we want to be represented. And yeah, so I'm excited to see. And then as we go into the journey, we're going to kind of do it a little, not like a whole lot different. Just I'm going to offer an opportunity to try something different that might be different for some of you. So Tiphareth. This is the center of the tree. So if you can see that image, it's literally part of the center column. Okay. And this central column is actually known as the pillar of consciousness, according to Dion Fortune. Okay, I referenced a lot of that she wrote about this because when I was reading her material from this mystical Qabalistic, it just really seemed to hit home. And I like what she says. It's like that it's not until we arrive at Tiphareth that we get a clear-cut, individualized consciousness coming down from Keter, the top sphere here. And this she calls the nucleus of consciousness. So it's like, and I was just seeing like a cell, and how the cell, its nucleus, and then it's like the whole other part of the organism, you know, coming down. And so we have this like line of this pillar of consciousness that is definitely very much connected to how we are. And a lot of exercises that magicians will practice, they say they're actually not just envisioning this sphere of Tiphareth, or the sun, which it's connected to, as like in their body, which would be kind of solar plexus, but more like the chest. It's kind of like an in-between. There's like a collection of nerves in that. I guess we could say around like the vagus nerve as well. It's like a practice would be to envision the tree in our body and in our astral sort of realm, or astral body, and then also envisioning ourselves fully as the sphere, or as the sun. Which I think like that just takes it to a whole other level. If you can like maybe tie that in somehow to your daily practice of meditating, or however you choose to work with the tree and the sphere, can you see yourself as this ball of like sunlight? That's kind of how I want to describe it. And so we can see it's like in the middle, it's being fed by the above, and it's also being fed by these other two spheres, Hesed and Gevura, which we'll be talking about in the next like month. And so it really is very important, because it's like, it's kind of a mediator between the upper world and the lower world, which is also what Jesus does. Like, I come from a very Christian background. So it's like, oh, the languaging around what we use to, you pray to Jesus for your sins, and Jesus communicates it kind of to God, is like the mediator between God and this human realm. There's like so many of these terms and words that are used that are highlighted within like biblical scripture, and it is highly tied to the concepts that we're talking about with the Tree of Life and like Qabalistic. And so this path number 6, or sphere 6, is known as the mediating intelligence. And the Sefer Yetzirah, like the kind of traditional book for Qabbalah in Jewish tradition, says that the mediating intelligence is named this because in it are multiplied the influxes of the emanations. So every other emanation or sphere kind of is radiating from it. Okay, though it doesn't come necessarily from it, it like communicates between all the spheres. Okay, for it causes that influence to flow into all the reservoirs of the blessings with which they themselves are united. So there's a few different titles for Tiphareth. one is which it means beauty. It also references something known as the Zaire Ampit, which is like the lesser countenance or the small face of the energies. And what it's referencing there is Tiphareth is literally a reflection or the smaller face of Keter. This would be known as the larger face. Okay. Don't ask what that is in Hebrew. I can't remember. It's close to Zaire Ampit. And so it's this as above, so below energy again being represented. And that's why we get the concept of the Son of God. It's the sun from a planetary perspective, and it's also literally born from, so to speak, like it comes from a representation of that. And oftentimes when you read about any material on Tiphareth, they're like, it's like it's Tiphareth, yes, yet we can't really look at Tiphareth without looking at the other spheres around it. So once we kind of get more into the conversation about Hesed and Gevurah in the next month, I think tying in all the other spheres that we've learned so far, like Netzach, Hod, and Yesod, you'll see, because this all represents what they call the Ruach, or kind of like soul within all its senses, like imagination, will, intellect, and all that. So it's this kind of center aspect of these spheres, including a sphere Da'at, which it's not really a sphere. You can't even see it there. It's like the invisible sphere. And yet, when they talk about Tiphareth, they reference how it's also important to reference that, from God or from the divine at Keter, it has to move through Da'at, which is knowledge, before it can come into actual existence in this worldly plane. Worldly astral plane maybe is the better way for me to explain that. And unfortunately I didn't bring the book with me. I'd written this note long time ago when I first started writing about the sphere. But Israel Regardi in the Middle Pillar book, he mentions how as we enter Tiphareth, we are lifting the veil of Paroket. And so there's different kind of veils or places that we pass through when we're talking about the Tree of Life. One is which here is the abyss, kind of where Da'at flows. It's above all of these before you get into the upper three spheres of that supernal triad. But in order to get to Tiphareth, we're basically having to move through this veil of Paroket. And I believe it's referencing to the veil in which the priests would go into at the Ark to enter the Ark of the Covenant in the holy spaces in Jewish tradition. In certain rituals too, we will literally, before we start ritual, we will open up the veil and vibrate Paroket as a way to indicate we are entering beyond into a very holy sacred space. Okay, so I'm just speaking that because I feel as though there is power in recognizing these different veils, these different kind of levels to deepening our understanding, deepening our consciousness, which is happening as we move up through the spheres. So I mentioned how it's on the central pillar. Okay. Another part of this is this major tie to Tiphareth as the different terms can be the lesser countenance, the king, Adam, the sun, the man, the sphere of the sun, which as a woman, and I was like, oh God, I hope people are going to it's too much masculine. I do think it's important though that we just recognize that place of the center and the balance of the masculine and the feminine within, which I feel like Jesus had that energy. Okay. Another huge part about the sphere of Tiphareth is its connection to seeing through the seership. And so I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with that. What is a seer? In the Norse tradition, we have the Volva, the Seder magic. It was about seeing. And it's beyond just prophecy. A seer can actually, they see with spiritual eyes. They can see not just the future, but the past as well. They can really see this whole lane of timeline, I guess we could say. And so what does that term seership mean for you? You know, is it something that you are open to, or is it kind of like, oh, that's for only certain types of people that have certain gifts? You know, again, when we're talking about the center sphere, it's like us opening to more of our magical abilities and all the abilities around that sphere with the other spheres in like the completion of it. Okay. So one who sees with spiritual eyes, and the vision within this sphere is like the spiritual vision one would aim, I guess, to experience is to witness the harmony of things. So seeing not just like one area, but how everything kind of operates together. And I think it was in this mystical Qabbalah, Dion Fortune talks about how it happens that as we enter, you know, we've made our way up, and this is the astral space. And it's like things are kind of starting to form, like there's a bit of a seeing of the vibration or the energy, so to speak. And then as we get up here, it's like becomes a bit more like solidified. And yet then we reach beyond it to what some people might witness or experience, is you see beyond the like physical world and the astral, and it's just light. Which would make sense because Keter is literally, that's what we're reaching for, and beyond the Ein Sof, the limitless light, that it just basically blinds people. My kid was watching this show, it's like a new show, The Digital Circus, something like that. It's like an animation. And it's like about this character that gets maybe sucked into some type of like matrixy simulation. In the episode that she was watching, I sat there and just watched her. She's trying to find the guy who I think is kind of supposed to be sort of like the main operator of the whole system. He was just having the grandest time doing all the things. She's trying to find him to like help another character. And she somehow walks through this exit door that just leads through this like endless hallway of offices. And she's like trying to get through. Finally goes through a door that just opens into this endless like abyss of light. And you can see kind of like pixels and maybe something kind of forming, yet it never forms. The Matrix, yeah, it was very much like the Matrix is how I was like, I told my kid, oh man, we have to watch the Matrix. I still think she's too young for that movie, but anyways, that's another point. And so finally though, at the end, this character is just floating in like nothingness and having this intense experience that like she just basically goes like into oblivion. And after at the end, like everyone's back together socializing, and you can tell she's still like stuck in this, like, what did I just witness? Nothing and everything, so to speak. And so when I saw that, it made me think of this. That's kind of sort of what I guess we could say happens here, you know, and it can be scary. I'm not saying that this is what's going to happen for us, you know, as we explored. It's just more that, you know, beyond this sort of experience of the spirit, it's almost like it could become a bit formless because the form is changing. And so this also leads to a bit of some of the terms that are used, because another part of the sphere, the spiritual vision for the sphere is not just to have a vision of the harmony of things. Also, it's the mysteries of the crucifixion. Okay, so if you're familiar with the story of Jesus, he was born from a virgin. His whole life purpose was to basically be raised up so that he would die for the sins of the world, be sacrificed or crucified. He was crucified on a cross, and then rise again. Be risen again, reborn as the God that he was. Okay, and as a redeemer for the world or for the experience of others. And so this idea of sacrifice is definitely heavily tied. And it was funny because I didn't even actually come across that word until today, after I talked to a client about sacrifice. And then I was like, oh, like, well, that's kind of interesting. Why did I talk about sacrifice and yet like what I had termed as the definition of sacrifice was a little different than what I think Dion Fortune mentioned even in her book. And so I wanted to just talk about that. the importance of sacrifice. It's more than just a voluntary losing or letting go of something in return of something. You know, that's often what we would identify, like, oh, I sacrificed eating chocolate so I could like lose 10 pounds or whatever the case might be. You know, I like what Dion Fortune says. She says the translation of force from one form to another is actually what sacrifice is. And that in itself to me is that totally defines what it is, because in the Old Testament, the old days, or even in some places still, like certain African traditions, the use of sacrifice is very important. Taking an animal, or back in the day, they'd used even humans, you know, to take the energy of that and then allowing it to literally move from that form in which it showed up in that individual, like whatever it is, to then let it go to like be used for something else. And so that idea of the sacrifice, even within this whole concept of the mysteries of the crucifixion, Jesus sacrificed himself to be reborn so that that energy can be used towards something else. So sitting with that idea of what does sacrifice mean for you? Some people can get really like, oh, you know, I'm not all saying go and sacrifice a living being or like creature. I mean, you know, no judgment. That's just not something I personally would do. I remember once I had a friend was going to do like a traditional Nigerian, yeah, I am weird would work, a traditional like African ritual. And she was like, okay, like we might need to get a pigeon. And I was like, why do you need a pigeon? Like, well, because it would be like an offering. And I was like, oh, please God, like I don't think I could do that. Different. Oh, there's so, and it's a very delicate art. You know, it's like it's done in a way that you have to be specifically trained to even offer these different sacrifices in a lot of these traditions. So different worlds.
Muslim families in the city,
Mm-hmm.
quite a number of speak that they sacrifice a goat when male child is born.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
And there's underground goat dealers. It's not within it's not within it's frowned down, obviously. So it's not goat business.
Underground goat business.
But there exists.
Because you're right, there is such a negative view about sacrifice. Even if we talk about having to sacrifice something in a relationship or in our life, you know, in order to experience something else, like it can leave us feeling a little like, you know. And so tying that into the virtue, I guess we could say, the virtue, the kind of like the aim of the sphere is really about connecting to our great work, okay? This devotion to the great work, which you may have heard me use that term before. And so I was like, well, what exactly is the great work, you know? Because it's like, we again have a negative thought sometimes towards work in general. The great work, according to alchemy, is like the ultimate goal. It's that magnus opus, the process in which we are basically transmuting or transforming and shedding away the impurities, anything that doesn't serve us, to bring about like the purest version of ourselves, or in alchemy, the element of like gold or the philosopher's stone. Okay. Another thing that they say about it, it's the joining of opposites. So that's where the sacrifice can come into play, is like the death of something can bring life. Kind of like you're saying, those newborn males that are coming in, the blood of that goat is somehow translating into this new life. And it does that through the intention, you know, otherwise it's like, oh, anyways, oh my gosh, I don't want to get too conspiratorial. I just also had this thought of like all the wars that we have, like how much of that is used towards like some weird sacrificial thing, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. Like that sounds really sick and gross. And yet this is kind of the world we live in, I think, as people who are aware of these sorts of practices, and that also energy never really is destroyed. It's just moved. it's a macrocosmic sacrifice. So, yeah, that's exactly kind of, I guess, how we could perceive it. And I often tell clients or people that I like work with, or, like if there's a loss of something, even if you don't have the intention of losing it, how can you take the energy of it, whether you get fired from a job or a relationship ends or something? How can you intend, like, okay, that has come to a completion. I'm going to draw that energy over into whatever my intended desire is. Death and taxes?
Change is inevitable. You just have to accept it.
Yeah. And then how do we add it and use it?
It's in maybe see sacrifice of choice rather than an external thing that happens for you. What if you choose the sacrifice because you want the right?
It is a choice, I suppose.
Sacrifice ego for greater cohesiveness. Sacrifice self to raise a child.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because like the vice of this, of the virtue, so the devotion to your great work, which is really ultimately, like you're saying, is kind of like selfish or selflessness, right? That's the word I'm looking to say. Yes. Like thinking of others, right? Going beyond, like that's kind of what Jesus did. Like I'm giving of myself for everyone else, so to speak. The opposite of that, the vice, is pride for the sphere. So we can see even how there's like some cult people who like all of a sudden come into so much power, and then it's like, it's about me. I'm the glorious son, or like however the words are that they might use, it can kind of switch very quickly. So just tapping into the realization of that. How is it you're connecting to a devotion of your great work? Where are those sacrifices coming up? And how can this support you, with really seeing the spirit in its like most dense form of nature, which is represented here in Tiphareth, okay, in the sphere. So some of the symbols that I'll just talk about. Again, the planetary connection to the sphere is the sun, which is known as Shemesh. Okay. And it actually means like it's related to healing gods, which I thought was fascinating, because the archangel also related to the sphere is Archangel Raphael, which literally the meaning is healing of God. And also there was another term for it. It was like he that standeth before God, or something like that. I'm gonna have to see if I can find it. It might be in that book. And I just really found it interesting, the wording of that the actual name Raphael represents. Dion Fortune says about the importance of the sun, that the sun is to us truly the giver of life and the source of all being. It is through the mediation of the sun that life comes to earth, and it is by means of the Tipharetic consciousness that we contact the sources of vitality and draw upon them both consciously and unconsciously. So just again, the power of the sun. And then they go on to talk about how the sun, the sun sphere, again, it's tied to all these like sacrificial gods, but also to these sun gods that are healing gods. And this sphere is known to help support basically healing pretty much everything in the body, just because it is such a vital source of our energy. Also because it's very much connected to like the blood and lymphatic system, is my understanding. So these sun gods, these healing gods, there's a lot of different myths. Osiris, right? There's like kind of like the Dionysus sort of energy as well within these different stories. And I think there's something really powerful there, especially for those people who maybe have had some like traumatic religious experiences where like, this is the only truth. It's like when you start to look at how various different groups or cultures have actually had similar ties in stories, even to like Odin being basically sacrificed on a tree, and it was in his death and rebirth that there was healing and wisdom that came through. There's so many similarities. It's uncanny, I guess. So we're talking here about kind of like this space here, the kind of upper solar plexus, the heart. It's actually tied to the breast. But Dion unfortunately even mentions, well, the breasts are actually the lungs and the heart space. Okay. And I saw it because like my breast today, sorry, it's TMI. It's like really, I'm just like, oh, like what's going on with my body? Like that's interesting. Like, and then it's like, oh, yeah, there's like giving, nurturing. So there's so much here about emotionality and our like, you know, and Tiphareth and representing beauty, even what is this all like kind of tying together with? So if something shows up for you emotionally in the next couple weeks, anything around this heart space, chest, breast area, like just recognizing, drawing upon the vitality of the sun to support you with like healing and at least shedding light on what wants to be seen or needs to be seen for you. Okay. So there are technically 5 different symbols or magical symbols for the sphere, and I just wanted to name them. I was like hoping to get a bit more understanding, and I'm hoping that that will come in the next couple of weeks around a couple of them. I'm going to share my screen here to show you one of them. So some of these magical symbols, one of them is like the lamen, which is basically like a magical weapon or protection that would be worn on the chest of a magician. Okay. It could have different shapes, different symbols, I guess you could say. And then we have the rose cross, and this is kind of considered the rose cross in the magical tradition. So it's a combination of different like symbols, planetary symbols, elemental symbols, and it's also got in the center the Hebrew alphabet in this sort of like rose petaled opening image. I'm not going to go into all the details of all the letters, but it kind of breaks it down into the middle section here. We have the mother letters. There are 3 mother letters in Hebrew. And it's kind of like they're the ones that everything else would come from, so to speak. And then we have the 7 planetary letters. And then outside of that, in the furthest third circle, we have the 12 zodiacal letters. And so this can be used to make different sigils and images. Like you could, if you know what each Hebrew letter is, you can write out your name and then draw lines between them to create these like sigils or line patterns. And so there's so many different ways in which one would use this, but the rose cross is another important symbol for us to recognize. Then there's the Calvary cross. There's which is like a little bit different, I guess, in the sense that the Calvary cross has to do with like the actual mysteries of crucifixion. So, you know, you can have your equal arm cross, you can have the Calvary cross, which is like there's actual certain measurements they say from like an occult perspective of how many times longer this like middle section needs to be compared to the like horizontal. Yeah, the ratios of it all. And this was, yeah, all the symbols of this week for Tiphareth, they're very much geometrical. So the truncated pyramid, I like really couldn't find a proper definition of how to describe that. So I would encourage you to like research it yourself. Do you want to speak to that?
No, I'm just trying to envision. It's pyramids, you know, a section or a
That's, I was not sure like that. And then this other book that I have.
Oh,
sure. Yeah.
it does.
It okay. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's why I think we want harder.
So it must be like a cross section is what you're saying.
Well, maybe.
Okay, well, so then it's funny because like the only thing I could kind of associate with this, the connection for me came in this book that I haven't really read this book yet, so I can't speak to it. But they talk about this very important triangle of causation. And this is tied to the top sphere or the top triangle of the sphere. Yes.
They complicated a 3D.
I'm assuming, because then like what happens is we have
Top down.
exactly. Mhm. So you could, you know, so like if we could like flip this like this and then see it in a 3D, yes, sort of perspective, we'd be able to see a pyramid, not just a triangle. And the thing they're talking about here with this triangle of causation is we need not just the desire from Keter at the top, we need the visualization and we need the imagination. And then you need yourself here as the individual who is experiencing these 3 points in order to actually draw it forth into physical reality. So yeah, like, so there's something really interesting about that truncated pyramid and that whole concept of like a 2D turning into a 3D sort of perspective when we are involved as like the observer. The organizer is another word that they use here. And like, just what does that mean? Okay. And then to kind of touch on that too is the idea of the cube. So the cube is also tied to the sphere of Tiphareth, and we can see a cube here, right? Like if you were like just looking at a pyramid top down, you wouldn't see the apex necessarily. You would just see like 4 sides, a square, which you would associate with a cube, you know, if you're like me. I hated geometry, okay? I like sacred geometry now. I hated it when I was in grade 10. Anyways, but the cube has 6 sides, and 6 represents Tiphareth. And it's kind of like, put this book away. It's kind of tied to Malkuth because the sphere of Malkuth, the most physically dense form, is actually 2 cubes attached. So it's kind of like 2 cubes and 1 cube, then 0 cube, like a point, dare I say, or nothing. So I'm just speaking that. Another thing I wanted to add about the pyramid, though, is that the pyramid itself represents the perfected man. And it said on the site, broad based on earth and tapering to unity in the heavens. So I thought that was interesting when we talk about that triangle of causation is in occult. It's like that's kind of like the perfectedness of man. Whereas the truncated pyramid, and I think in the Golden Dawn tradition, it's about the initiated student who is yet to cross that veil again. It's like they have not, I guess we could say, looking at that other image, it's like that's the initiated student who has yet to cross beyond the veil, beyond the abyss, into this triangle here. It's not perfected because they still have yet to actually become one with it, enter into that kind of blinding light, or so to speak. So yeah, I just feel like there's like a lot of this, it's like mystery. It just seems like mystery to me. What does this really mean? Until we're like practicing and becoming a bit more like inquisitive and just allowing the energy of Tiphareth to really take a role in our day-to-day, I think there'll be a lot of mysteries that will be like shared with us, you know, in our own individual way. Okay. I feel like I'm talking a lot, so if anyone has anything to say, feel free to speak it. I know, yeah, thank you for saying that.
The pressure, stare
Okay, so the divine name, oh, it's your show, thanks. So the divine name for this sphere is Yod-He-Vav-He, Eloah Va'da'at. And that ties kind of like this connection with that knowledge in that sphere that's invisible and the divine tetragrammaton, that Yod-He-Vav-He name. And Yod-He-Vav-He, Eloah Va'da'at means God made manifest in the sphere of the mind. So again, this is kind of a sphere of knowledge. So it's God coming forth now into consciousness, like a different form of a viable consciousness, a consciousness that we can actually kind of like, dare I say, touch in a sense. The magical images for this sphere are 3. It's the child, the sacrifice God, and the majestic king. So we're going to touch on to those 3, you know, kind of symbols or energies when we go into meditation or pathworking. And I feel like I want to show this too. So hopefully I have the image. I didn't actually download it. Pretty sure I have an image of it. Yes. The sun card. Because to me, you know, when we go in, this just to me seems like the image of like what we're talking about, the sun. Like it's the child on this horse, just completely open and riding free, the sun with its vitality. The sun card is actually connected to the planet of the sun, and it represents the letter Resh, which is the head in the Hebrew, means the head in the Hebrew alphabet. So, you know, again, the sun, being egotistical, thinking that the sun, everything evolved around the sun versus around the earth. Like, you know, there's all these different themes. And then there's also the need for us to have a sense of innocence within all of this. Otherwise, that's maybe where pride can take over when we think, oh, we know it all. Okay. So whatever that brings up for you. Some of the incense or fragrance associated with this sphere, there's rose and there's jasmine. So I'll pass around the jasmine. Do you? It's so powerful. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, sorry. And actually, it's funny. So that was given to me because we, in our women's group, we all received a different fragrance or a different essential oil. And that was the one that was given me. And now I'm just realizing that that's actually the seer essence, because that was kind of what came out from that weekend in a lot of different ways. And so, again, seership. How can this open that up for you? Jasmine, rose, again, the rose being the rose cross, and there's a few different colors associated with the sphere that are connected to the rose. The angelic, the musical tone for this sphere is the musical note F. Okay, musician folks. And then the colors, the main color we're going to associate with is yellow for this sphere, but some of the other colors, depending on the level of like consciousness you want to reach, like a more spiritual consciousness versus the more physical realm, is clear rose pink, rich salmon pink, or golden amber. Which, Paula, when I was telling you that dream I had about the guy with that oval shaped thing around it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was totally a golden amber cross inside of his ear. So it's funny already, the dreams kind of coming through with these images. The tarot cards related to this sphere, the 4 sixes, which are very like positive cards. We have the 6 of Wands, which is victory, the 6 of Cups, which is joy, the 6 of Swords, which is earned success, and the 6 of Pentacles, material success. So now that we've moved past 3, 4, 5, we're like in the the relatively good one at this point. So, yeah, so a lot of different concepts around the sphere. We're going to go into the actual path working. And what I was going to invite you, I know you're wearing shades online there. And if you have a blindfold that you would like to wear. So if you want to know, if you'd like to put it on, I'll probably dim the lights too. Blindfold. Yeah, it's like a special blindfold that just really like blocks light out, and without touching your eyes, there's like a gap. So hopefully it'll be dim enough or dark enough. And the reason we're going to do it like this was just, I won't be wearing it. So, is that idea of getting into like the darkness so that we can then see the light. And if you've ever spent multiple days or a long period of time in darkness, this is what happens. You start to see different. You start to see things without seeing, and yet you're seeing. It's a very interesting experience. So let us go into this journey, into this path working to connect to Tiphareth and receive whatever it is that you're about to receive. And so we'll start with that breath of fire, that inhaling, holding, and all for equal parts as you connect to that flame within your solar plexus, exactly where the Tiphareth space is. And as we connect to this consciousness of Tiphareth and its corresponding energies, if there is any intention that you hold personally around beauty, around connection to the mysteries of life, your sun nature, just bringing that to mind, holding that as you continue the breath. And you begin now to create your magical light body as you desire it in front of you, allowing energy from the universe around you to illuminate this image, adorning this magical light body in any way that you wish, seeing your most magical self as it is formed. Begin to breathe your consciousness out of your physical body and into this body of light. And now you, standing as your most magical self, begin to form the image of the temple in front of you. And two pillars on both sides of a door appear. In this door, you begin to imagine the color of Tiphareth, a yellow. This yellow is a vibrant sphere of light, and as you breathe, it gets larger and brighter, filling your light body, filling the entire room and space around you. Now a door appears between the pillars, and this door is the same color, except it's much more vibrant, allowing this door to take on this vibrant yellow color. And with that, you enter through the temple into a space of a darkened room, almost void-like, and yet you sense the possibility of creation in this space. And as you enter, you begin to vibrate the divine name. You feel the presence of the divine. Notice the color of the room shifting to that of the same yellow. We vibrate the archangelic name. Ra, Fa, Ra, Fa, Ra, Fa, and with the last vibration, the image of two pillars standing on either side of an altar appeared. The black pillar of Boaz on the left, and the white pillar Hakim on the right. And on the altar, you see the elements of air, water, fire, and earth. You see the 6 tarot cards, the sixes, victory, the 6 of wands, joy, the 6 of cups, earned success, the 6 of swords, and material success, the 6 of pentacles. And above the altar, above these four elements and the four cards, you see the lamp shining in the same yellow color. So you stand in front of the altar, you, the middle pillar, and you vibrate. Yore va te va ja ra fa Tiphareth Shaman. With that, before you appears a child riding a horse, the sun shining brightly behind them. Yod He Vav He El Vav Vav Ra Fa And the child greets you by name and welcomes you to the sphere of Tiphareth. Receive their energy as you hear the words. Welcome to the mediating intelligence. Shamash, the sphere of the sun, this place where the child becomes king, having risen from the depths of sacrifice. And the Melachim appear before you. Yod He Vav He El Vav Da Ra Fa The Melachim, the kings, in their glorious kingship, honor you with a cube with the image of the rose cross lovingly printed upon it. Yod He Vav He El Vav Da Ra Fa Receive these gifts along with a message. And the child on the horse slowly begins to morph into the image of a king, having risen from the dead. In triumphant glory and power, he stands before you, and you pass the cube to him for inspection. As he looks at it, he breathes life and a message of expanded consciousness into you and the cube. And in your solar plexus and chest appear a glowing light of clear rose pink. It glows, filling this part of your body. And this light shifts to a yellow. Breathe. This light shifts to a rich salmon pink. See. And finally, the light shifts to a golden amber. See. Awakening the consciousness of the tree within you. And the king returns the cube back to you. And you receive the spiritual vision of the harmony of all things and the mysteries of crucifixion. the elements of Tiphareth with you now. Receive. Yo, de, va, re, va, da, ra, fa, feeling the elements within your solar plexus, your chest, fire within. Place the cue for safekeeping within you. With this, you thank the divine being as he has risen up, sacrificed God. You were granted the invitation to visit again. You choose. And with this, on your next inhale, you bring back your consciousness into your physical body. And exhaling out, allowing the image to return back into the ethers. Returning to the space as we stand yet again for the Qabalistic cross. Stand in honor, thanking the divine guide spirit to awaken the sun within us. Vow, gratitude, thankfulness, reach out for the light. It's working complete. So it is. So feel free to journal and write about your experience and to continue with the work in the next couple weeks. And we will be meeting again, 2 weeks from now, at the space to work through the next one, which is Qabalistic. Yes. And a lot of Mars energy. That's going to be fun. And then there'll be a bit of a break over the holiday time. We'll be restarting again in January after that one. So, like in the charts, you mean?